is Terry Coaxum on the Coaxum Report, and I am truly blessed today to be joined by Tiffany Whipple and Vincent Whipple of Cynical Leadership Group. Welcome, welcome. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good.
So thank you for joining me on the Coaxum Report today. I am truly excited to be talking to two super amazing, groundbreaking educators on the Coaxum Report. Before we get started, I just want to let you know who's listening in on our conversation. So we are broadcast throughout all of the Caribbean. We're throughout all of Southeast Asia and, of course, here in the United States. And so if you hear from your family members that they see you on Roku or Android Fire TV on our TV network, please understand that you are part of our family now. So thank you so much for joining us. They can also listen to you on WSTX Bloomberg, who's also one of our partners, in Tempo. And so you're on the Coaxum Report. It's on the marketplace. I thank you for joining us today to talk about some of the barriers, best practices, and of course, the big ideas around education as it relates to being in this space and how we can educate our children better, our adults better, and how we can move forward and really move the needle in education. But before we get started, I just want to know, how'd you guys start? Like, what's the emphasis around being educated? Like, what made this all come together for you guys?
Well, Terry, I've been in education since 2000. I started off as a classroom teacher. And, one of the things about teachers is that we have a certain niche within the education market. I liked working with the students who were, let's say they were a little more challenging, people had given up on them. And so I really loved doing that work because it taught me how to really build relationships with people who may not want the relationship in the beginning. And so then I went from there. I became a guidance counselor, an instructional coach, assistant principal, head principal of a small alternative school in Philadelphia. And when I decided that I wanted to do something different, it was because I was like, I don't want to be a superintendent. But what I did like doing was coaching, training teachers, and helping them to have better relationships with students because it benefits them.
That's right.
So in 2018, I got the nudge. I just knew it. I was like, this is my last year. This is it. And people were like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And I really did not know. And it just came to me. So 2019, we buckled down and just really figured out what we were going to do, and then started Cynical and started going out and getting contracts because the whole thing was the passion, right? I wanted to attract people that wanted to go into the teaching field and support them while they're doing it. But also I was like, well, how are they going to make money while they're out doing this? And I was like, perfect, substitute teaching. That's where you get your feet wet. And so that's kind of how it blossomed, and it just kind of grew from there. We all know what education is like now with, lack of teachers and resources and everything. So we really, people just started reaching out like, hey, we need you. We need you. We were glad that we were able to be there. And I'll let Vincent tell a little bit of his story.
Hi, Vincent. How'd you jump into this?
Well, the first thing
feet first, Tiffany. Feet first.
I'll start by saying that Tiffany is extremely modest, right? She actually started this company back in 2016, and that sort of speaks to her leadership and her ability to respond to the market. Right. So she always had a vision. And, she always says, I said I didn't know what I was going to do. And I think that was the most genius thing I had ever heard. Right? Really being open opportunities. Since joining Cynical about a year or so ago, I came from the corporate side. Have worked with the federal government for several years. Then went on to do some HR work with some major corporations in New York. And then during the Great Resignation, I was like, you know what, it's time to bring my talents home.
I never quite heard it called that before.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. It was time to bring my talents
home. We were running for the hills.
All I saw was opportunity. I was like, wow. And to say succinctly, when you're starting a business, Tiffany and I both come from entrepreneurial families. When you're starting to be that first 3 to 5 years to get launched, and it was like, she made it happen. And I was like, so now is the time to come in and support in an impactful way.
So I am super excited. I'm an educator as well. I teach at Medgar Evers College. I've taught at John Jay College, Bryan and Stratton, Metropolitan College of New York.
Okay.
I don't believe there's bad children. I think that children make bad decisions based on their circumstances. And so I'm all about that life, right? And Tiffany can understand. I'm sure you can visit now too. I'm all about that life. I'm all about, Mayor Eric Adams likes to say, go upstream and catch them before they jump in, as opposed to going downstream and drag them out. So I'm all about the upstream life, right? So I started a wellness foundation where we're going to be the Bill and Melinda Gates of the hood, right? We're literally going to take fifth graders from fifth grade throughout college, and we're going to pay for it all. And we're going to give them equestrian lessons, and we're going to give them etiquette training, and they're going to have access to sororities and fraternities and all of these things that's going to mold them into these great leaders that I know they can be. Because this is a model that we use at the district attorney's office. Way back when I first came in this game, we had 150 kids that we mentored, and they told us these kids were statistics, and these kids are successful to this day, simply because we took them out of a concrete jungle and took them upstate New York and let them see they can get on these horses. And they were like, Terry, where's the concrete? I'm like, baby, there's another life out there. And so when I hear you speak and I see the passion in your voice and I see, the destiny behind everything that you guys are doing and the lives that you're touching in so many ways, I'm super excited to have you on the show today, because I want us, not just Black and brown people. I want Black and brown people, definitely, but I want others to understand that there is greatness in us all, right? And so when we follow our definitive purpose in life, and understand what that is, and take everything that God has poured into us and put it into others, oh my God, there is just no stopping us. And so I'm super excited to talk to you today about what Cynical Leadership Group is doing, how Cynical Leadership Group is doing it, and how to be a part of it moving forward, right? Because it's all about access. And we know that on so many different levels in education, right? I remember when my youngest child, she's 27 now. When she started, I found a book called New York City's Best Public Schools, and I put her into a public school. It was housed out of IS 302. It was PS 89. IS 302 being the worst school in the district. Talk about it. Wow. PS 89 being the best school in the district. Talk about it. She was in a public school with a private school model, and she was learning Spanish 5 days a week continually. So she was exposed to the trumpet, where she serenaded Wynton Marsalis at 8 years old. She became bilingual just because kindergarten to fifth grade, she was immersed in a language program. She became a leader, and she graduated with honors. And so I say all that to say is, we can help from the ground up. All we have to do is have access, right? And there is no, even when our kids have learning disabilities, they still can learn. They just learn differently.
Yes.
And so I'm here for it, and I'm showing up today, and I'm so excited about where you are and what you've done. And I'm so excited to know where you're going and to be a part of it. And so the first thing I want to start off about barriers, because, this just didn't happen yesterday. You didn't wake up and you had a dream and here you are. Like, there was some barriers that you had to go through in order to obtain the success that you have obtained. And so I always like to talk to my small businesses about barriers. And then I want to talk to them about best practices and big ideas, so they can understand, if Tiffany and Vincent is doing this, so can they. No matter where they are in the world, they can also be educators and be super phenomenal in everything that they do. So I want to talk about some of the barriers that you guys have had to face in this education field, especially now with online and AI and all these other things, that are coming to market, that are making education look different. I'm not saying that it's different, but it may appear different to people. So what does that look like for you guys? What are some of those barriers?
Well, when you first said barrier, I first thought about capital. So, I mean, like,
And that's number one. That's always, believe it or not, Tiffany. Every time I talk to a small business owner, if it's a restaurant or retail or consultant or a lot, it's always access to capital.
yes,
That usually is number one. So
yes.
that's also been the same for you guys.
I'm sorry, ask that question again.
That's also been the same for you guys in the beginning. Access
Oh,
to
yes.
capital.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I went to, just talk to my bank. I had been banking with them for years. And they were like, oh, you have to be in business this many years and have this amount of revenue and this and that. So I kind of walked out like, okay, Tip, you're on your own. You're on your own. So, that is one, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
No, doesn't mean never. That's right.
Right. So I borrowed some money from my, retirement to get it started, and it took off. I'll be honest with you, during the COVID time, that was crazy because everything shut down. And I was like, oh, wow, we did like move to an online thing, like to do tutoring, but it didn't take off as well as the in-person substitute teacher did. So we really we got saved by being able to get like the benefits that the government was providing to businesses. Yeah, so that we were able to still keep going, because as soon as schools started opening up, Terry, they were calling, and they were referring us, and I was like, wow. Me and business was like, oh my gosh, we even like advertise, and business is picking up. So I would say the one barrier was the capital, but where there's a will, there is a way.
That's
and we made it happen. We're still alive. We're still thriving. And that's great. Another barrier.
So let me back up, because that's a huge one, right? Especially for small business owners that are in that education space. And so I want you to kind of help us to understand, for those that are faced with that now. And I always tell them to get ready so they don't have to be. I tell them to be ready so they don't have to get ready, right? And so what I'm going to ask you is, what made you be positioned to be able to have that funding available, right? So I'm talking about in sense of your finances, right? You understood your budget and your financials and your profit and loss. Like, what was that? What did that look like for you? Because some individuals believe that they could just show up, have a good idea, and then go to the bank and be like, hey, or pull out their retirement, and it just magically works out. How did that really show up for you? Because that's not reality. I know it because I teach entrepreneurship and business. But as a business owner that's in the clutches of it all, because you're running your business and you're making sure your business isn't running you, so you have to have your paperwork in order, right? What does that look like so that you are ready to accept the capital when the government, because the government didn't just give you that capital, you had to have some things in order to have access to that. Talk to me.
So Terry, I will say this. When I first started, I was like telling people like, I'm in business school, but I don't like, my instructor is business, like life. I was learning all these different things like, okay, if you hire W-2 employees, then you got to make sure you have unemployment insurance.
That's right. Disability insurance. And yeah. Uh-huh.
So I was like learning, and sometimes it was like after the fact, like, oh, you need this. Okay.
On the job training.
Yeah, so I would go and get it really quick, because I'm one of those people, Vincent will tell you, I'm one of those people, you never want to do anything wrong with me, because I don't want any.
You don't want no problems on these streets.
I don't want no consequences.
I don't want that smoke.
Fines. I don't want anything. And so I will say, when I first started, because Vincent was still over in corporate America at the time, but it was like you start small. So I had maybe, 5 or 6 teachers, but guess what? One of them was me. I was going in and subbing. I was going in and working. I had to borrow some money sometimes from family members just to make payroll. And I remember, like Vincent said earlier, like both of we had come from an entrepreneurial family. And I called my father one day, and I was kind of early in the game, and I was like, Dad, I don't know, like I'm like, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. And he was like, he's real calm. He was like, no, he was like, this is how it is. It ebbs and it flows, it goes up and down. And he's like, you're going to question yourself sometimes. Like, why did I do this? And then other times you're going to feel great about it. And he was like, keep going. And then we just kept going. And then it wasn't the issue of, oh, I got to figure out money to make payroll. I got to borrow this. I got to go in. I got to do that. It just, we just kept building and hiring people to help and support us.
That's right. And so what I'm taking away from that is you have to know your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand what it takes to run a business. You're not just going to show up in your business and your business runs smoothly. So you have to have a relationship with the Department of Labor and understand what they require. You have to have a relationship with IRS and understand what you need to report, whether you're an LLC or a partnership or any of those other entities, right? You have to have a relationship with a tax preparer or someone, a CPA or an accountant, because you need to know, because like Tiffany said, you don't want that smoke. You don't want
it
to show up with penalties with money that you've already had allocated for something else. And so, that's number one. And I want folks to understand that because, when you're successful, and you get down that road a piece, people don't look back at the real blocks. There is some real layers to this thing. There are some real stepping stones to get to where you guys are now. And they're going to be even more stepping stones the more successful you are. And so what I'm trying to get my small businesses especially to understand is you do have to have these relationships. You do have to understand your business. You do have to make sure that you're not paying penalties for stuff that you can do in advance, right? And take care of. And in New York, so we have the small business services that can help you kind of understand, the government entities and what you're required to have, right? We have Empire State Development. It also can do that. In Connecticut, we have the same thing. In New Jersey, we have similar entities that can help small businesses to understand that, right? But also, I need you to understand your finances. You should know what it takes to run your business on a day-to-day basis. I know you don't want numbers, I'm not asking you to be a CPA. But I am asking you to understand the basic numbers. How much is it going to take to run your business, right? How much are you putting out? How much is coming in? What's your profit? What's your loss? Understand your inventory if you have some.
Yeah. And I was also going to say, Terry, like one of the things that I learned too, because you said you have to know your business.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're doing. And so like Vincent helped me to understand this because I have to do things that I don't really enjoy doing. Like, I have to do payroll. I have to make sure it's right. I have to make sure people are clocking in and, all that kind of stuff. But what I realized too was there's certain things that I can hire somebody or I can partner with somebody that can handle that. You do all that tax stuff. I need to understand it to make sure that it's right. But that's not where I want to spend my time and talent.
That's right. And I say that all the time, Tiffany, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's another nugget. You getting these nuggets? Because she is dropping knowledge.
I'm going to stop talking so much so Vincent can drop some nuggets.
And that really is another nugget. Hire someone to do the things that you don't want to do or that you don't have the time to do. Don't be afraid to bring someone in and hire them. Put the right people in the right seats for the right time. And don't be afraid to dismiss them when it's no longer the seat for them. And a lot of us small businesses, we get into I love feelings. It ain't about feelings. It's about business. So if this person is in my business and I understand that they're no longer in the right seat, you got to move them out of that seat. Because if you don't, what you're going to do is hinder your business from being scalable and growing. And so now we're gonna let Vincent drop some knowledge because Tiffany already dropped us some things. So come on, talk to us, Vincent.
I guess
tell us how you did that.
On that same topic, for small business, I think it's also about being strategically prepared to do business, right? Like a lot of the due diligence that you talked about, like, hey, having the right relationships, what type of capital would also be needed. I really thought about it like, so from a personal finance perspective too,
right?
Pay off the car now. So now that's not a bill that we have while we are doing business, right?
Nice.
Let's put ourselves in a position so that when it is tight, we don't have another bill too.
Right.
It's different if your car breaks and you have a car payment as opposed if your car breaks and you don't have a car payment. Those are
absolutely. So assessing your needs, right? And understanding them and then getting and paying it down. And that goes also back to that access to capital, right?
Correct.
Because when you start going after that those financing options, they're looking at your debt to credit ratio, right? And so if you are able to pay that car off and that is no longer a debt to you, that shows up in your finances. And that will be a good thing when you're looking to get more capital. A lot of us just need operational capital to
Correct.
move from one season in our life to another season in our life so that we can scale our business. And so it's really important for us to understand our business, to understand if that is what we're doing. So we're dropping knowledge all over the place here. So now we talked about some of the barriers. Are there anything else in this space in education? For me personally, being at Medgar Evers College, being at John Jay College, one of the biggest things for me, Tiffany and Vincent, was COVID and closing down of the colleges and getting the students to come back, right? There was a lot of touchy feely, and so now enrollments are increasing again. But that was a lot. My biggest thing was keeping them engaged online. I had the honor and the pleasure to work for Bryan and Stratton way back before online learning was a thing, right? And so I was able to gain a lot of knowledge and a lot of training to keep students engaged because Bryan and Stratton is strictly online learning. And I did this maybe 15 years ago, right? So I was able to take that knowledge and those knowledge, skills, and ability and apply them now. And so, I did things like I brought in guest speakers. I brought in the ambassador or the senator. If I'm teaching public policy, I'm bringing in a person that wrote the legislation around gun control. Students showed up. They want to know because they want to ask questions. If I'm talking about parole and probation, I'm bringing in a parole officer, probation officer, and a bail bondsman. Let's talk real, and those things kind of brought people into the door. And then I gave extra credit for stuff and they showed up. But you have to be real creative when it's an online thing because cameras were off sometimes, folks they were laid back in their beds. I'm like, I know you are not. You're not laying in your bed on camera. What is going on? So I'm saying all of that. That was a challenge for me. That was a challenge for other educators. We are able, like in the Medgar Evers community, we often meet, the professors often meet. We're in a public administration program. We give each other nuggets all the time. We're always sharing best practices. And so there are ways that we've been able to be really creative with our students, and it encourages them and let them know that they're still a part of the classroom setting. And so even though they were online, they felt like they were a part of campus life. We included them in that campus life setting. And so it was a lot easier for public administration to kind of bring people back into the campus. What did that look like for you guys? Because now you went from strictly in person to this online setting, and now you're back. And people are like knocking down your door. They're like, come on, let's go. Like, how did that transition for you?
Well, we didn't really have much going on during COVID. We maybe had a couple of teachers because they were already long-term teachers working in the school. So They were like, hey, we still need them. I'm like, perfect.
Okay.
So they, everybody was scrambling to figure out online learning. And so we just supported as much as we could with our teachers. I did more support with the instructional piece, like, hey, here's some, math concepts, and here's some things that can teach you how to teach them. But as far as like the online learning, that was pretty much on the schools. And honestly, I have not had the experience of teaching K through 12 online. I've taught classes of adults, but not kids. So I wasn't much of a support in that area. But I knew how to find somebody if they needed it to help with that. But yeah, once COVID ended, then it was back to, I would say our business quadrupled.
Yeah. Yeah, because that social and emotional is real. And folks wanted to be back in the classroom. They wanted to be back apart. And you didn't realize how impactful that really was until COVID happened. And then you saw these students, they were hungry for that interaction. They were really, really hungry to be back in the classroom. And so we had to do it, and we had to do it safely. But it really, you really had your work cut out for you in that sense, but they were ready to be back in the classroom.
And I've heard teachers, a lot of my friends, they are telling me that the students coming back from COVID, like the younger kids, they were they had never been in a school setting before. So they were used to being home and getting whatever they wanted and getting a snack whenever they wanted. And now they're in this classroom with all these kids, with all these rules, and they said it's been a lot. And so one of the things that we noticed with our teachers is, that social emotional learning, that kind of support, like helping our teachers to do it, to be, mindful of where they are, their triggers and everything, understanding, that the kid may be cussing you out or having a tantrum, and it has absolutely nothing
to do with
and then how you're going to handle that. And so this year, that's one of the things that we are really ramping up. We only kind of like work with some of the teachers that would come and ask for that support, and now we're going to implement that across the board. Our teachers are going in prepared with a toolbox of different strategies and working with students and being there for them on a more social and emotional level.
Okay, and we're going to pick that up some more, because I do PDs for DOE here in the city, and so we'll talk more about that. But we got to take a quick commercial break. Believe it or not, we're halftime already. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much for being on the Coaxum Report.
ICABA, ICABA, stands for the International Career and Business Alliance. And basically, it's really about building, activating relationships that grow wealth.
What is ICABA doing? ICABA is putting you in an environment where you can rub shoulders, you can actually talk to wealth creators, to entrepreneurs who may look like you, who may come from circumstances like you, who may come from an environment like your environment. And then once you go ahead and grab that baton, you might say, well, this is possible. This individual over here did it, and now I can do it. So ICABA is raising our level of vision, and they're doing a fantastic.
ATL runs on V Plus Energy. We love our home and our people. We at V Plus made it our mission to provide healthy energy to our city, so that's what we did, and you all love it. 5 fruits, 5 vegetables, 5 vitamins, it's healthy, tasty energy. But don't just take my word. Listen for yourself.
Man, I've tried a lot of energy drinks. Tastes good. That's one of the biggest things. Refreshing, and it's not too strong. So I like it, man.
People, it's Alexander Aperture, the commercial king, and check this out, man. We're here with V Plus Energy. Look, you try to get your energy up. You out here at a competition like this, man. Field day. You're gonna need something to get a little extra kick. Make sure you get that V Plus Energy.
Hey, what's up? It's Toya Johnson Russian, and we are checking in with the V Plus Energy drink. This drink is amazing. I love that it don't give you the jitters. Fried. Check it out. The drink is very good. I like the peach flavor. And so far, I'm trying to see if the energy kicks in.
I guess that energy kicked in. Now it's time to get you some. Visit drinkvplus.com.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Coaxum Report. For those of you that missed the first half, you missed a phenomenal conversation with Tiffany and Vincent about Cynical Leadership Group and all that they're doing. We talked about the barriers, access to capital being one of them, of course. We talked about getting ready so you don't have to be ready as it relates to your finances, hiring folks so you don't have to do it all or be all, right? We also talked about paying things off, your debt to credit ratio, and how that improves your outlook, especially in your forecasting and you're looking to invest more into your business. We also talked about all of the different talents and gifts and just empowering our young people, supporting schools and empowering our students is what Cynical Leadership Group is doing. And so, we have Tiffany, who is lifelong educator, and Vincent, who's coming out of corporate, but also was a part of the Great Resignation. We're not gonna go into that. I just picture him like this. But it's truly been a pleasure on with you guys today. And so for those of you that are just tuning in, again, you can catch us on Roku, you can catch us on Apple, on Android, on Fire TV. I encourage you to download our app, Our TV Network. And you can also listen to us on the radio at WXTX Bloomberg. So we're going to jump right back into it. We started talking about social and emotional learning and how the Cynical Leadership Group is supporting our educators. One thing that I just want to back up a little bit and looking at Cynical Leadership Group and how they're unique, there's 3 pillars of support, right? And I'm sure that Tiffany and Vincent can get really into this with you, but pillar 1 being educator support, so they're teacher and paraprofessionals, diverse educators, right? Pillar 2 being educator development, so coaching and mentoring, training and support, professional development, and then pillar 3 being academic programming, project-based learning, and summer programming. So all of these pillars collectively and just working together to empower and encourage not just our educators, but making sure that our students have that foundation that they need to be great, right? So all I hear is win, 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 right? So when we started talking, when we took a little break about social and emotional development, and I want Tiffany to get back into that because as an educator, I do professional development with some of the schools in DOE, and that was a huge deal, that social and emotional learning component. And I remember having conversations with our teachers here in New York about some of the ways and some of the tips and tools that they can use for their students, especially the students like you talked about, the younger students who hadn't been exposed to the classroom before, and they're like, why do we have all these rules and why do I have to follow them, right? And so maybe they need a timeout corner, and it's not a timeout corner in the social sense, but a fun corner, a space where they can, sit on a bean bag and have some happy, fuzzy, whatever that is, and just showing them that it's okay. Adults need to take a break sometimes. We need to step away and be like, all right, give me a minute without putting our hand up, of course, but we need that too. And so we want to impart on them healthy habits. And so social and emotional learning is all about that, giving them the healthy habits, the tools and tips that they need to be productive, to understand that they do have feelings, and it's okay to not be okay at 5 or 4 or even at 6. I remember growing up in the South, there's like children should be seen and not heard. That didn't work very well.
That didn't work for me either. I got in a lot of trouble, Terry. But
right, that didn't work very well. So now, as a mother who has a 33-year-old, 27-year-old, 12-year-old grandson, and now a 4-year-old, I understand that there are some different things that we have to do to make sure that we're giving our kids the foundation they need emotionally, socially, physically. It's okay to give a hug. I remember, and Vincent could probably speak to this. I remember my brothers. I'm the only girl, so I have 3 brothers. Boys are not supposed to cry. They didn't call them, but men are not supposed to cry. I'm like, yeah, I need you to cry. Let that out, and then let's talk through those feelings and figure out what the next should be for you. Because if you're bottling that up, pressure bust pipes, right? Yep. I don't want you to be an angry young man. I want you to be a productive young man that is able to express his feelings. And a way to do that is in this setting, in this safe space where we're able to show you that these are different feelings. I remember my little Andrew, he's 4. I gave him a feelings, a little wheel. How are you feeling today? I'm angry. Why are you angry? Let's talk through what angry feels like. It turns out he wasn't angry. He was disappointed. But in his heart, he was angry.
You know what, Terry? I know that years ago, I was in I got trained to train, like the Train the Trainer program,
right?
Trauma-informed care. And a lot of that, it seems closely related to SEL. And the key thing is that first, as the, I guess, leader of the classroom, you have to understand yourself. You have to understand where you are first before you even begin talking with the 4-year-old about how they're feeling.
That's right.
And you have to care. Do you really care how they're feeling? Because if you don't, guess what? They're gonna know.
That's right. They pick up on that straight away.
Yeah. But I'm gonna pass the mic to Vincent. One of the things I will say about, you were talking about tips for, other entrepreneurs. This is one of the things I've seen. So I have some of my friends who are also entrepreneurs, but they don't necessarily have a strong team around them. And when Vincent came on board, it was like a relief, because I'm like, I don't have to sit here in my mind and try to figure it out by myself. I have somebody I can bounce it off of that can tell me, no, Tiffany, that's crazy, or no, Tiffany, that's not going to work, or Tiffany, how about this? I'm going to go with that, So a team is important, a team that you trust and that adds value. And Vincent was one of the ones that was like, let's bring the tutoring back. And I'm like, yes, let's bring the tutoring back and the SEL, and we're going to also use that with our teachers, because it is needed in every single school. Every single school. And I think every teacher should be trained on how to deal with understanding themselves and how to actually work with students in the way that you said, instead of being punitive. Like, how can we make this work? How can it be more restorative?
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Talk to us, Vincent. Give us some more nuggets. I got my pen ready. Come on, Vincent. No pressure.
As we talk about, we can stay on topic, the SEL as an example, right? So, that's one of the things that Tiffany had always expressed that was important to be a part of our brand, and always thinking about how can we, what is the most impactful way to do that, right?
That's right.
We started with our educators.
That's right.
Which is having impact in the classroom, not only to the children, but then potentially to the other educators as well.
Okay.
Right? We also strategically looked at how could we have greater impact earlier upstream, as you were saying, right? So we really began to focus and grow paraprofessionals, right, with that mindful SEL trauma informed care approach, right?
Mhm.
So now we have the kids, engaging with them early on, and at that para level, you're able to have more impact because you can have more individuals in the school at one time. You know? So just really thinking strategically how you can have the most impact in the business whatever business you run, and then I think that then also shows you additional opportunities once you're there, right? So we got in well with the paraprofessionals and the substitute teachers, and so now let's take it to virtual. How can we further support our schools? How can we deepen that relationship as opposed to always looking for new business, right? How can we nurture the business that we have currently?
Right. And then when you're saying that, I'm thinking doing more than what is expected.
Correct.
And that is key in any of our business, right? Because and I just had this conversation with another small business owner. I'm like, word of mouth is still it. Forget what you heard, right? Yeah. So a person's word of mouth can say Tiffany and Vincent or thebond.com, period. And that's going to go 10 times more, because when I'm looking for someone to support my school or to empower my students, I remember you said Tiffany and Vincent. So I'm going to call on you guys to do that, because I remember when you went above and beyond to make sure that that SEL was impactful. And I think it's really important for us as small business owners or business owners in general to understand our mission and our vision, and to be clear that that is what we're in business to do. Yes, we want to make money, but not at the risk of what we're in business to take care of. And so I'm glad you said that, Vincent, because a lot of us, we look at scale, and we're just looking at scale. We're looking at how many, and I think about it, and it's unfortunate that I think about it this way, but I think about the doctor's office way back when there was a hip center, and you would get your appointment at the hip center, and it was like an assembly line. Like you waited more in the waiting room than you did to see the doctor. Like you would go into the doctor's office and he would check off these couple of lists, and then he would move you right along and get the next person in the door. And I remember walking away feeling like, wait a minute now, I got health insurance. Right. So this is how I'm feeling. This is not okay. So I used to go, first of all, I'm a Virgo, so I'm real anal, and everything has a place and an order. So I went in with my list. I'm like, here is my list. So he was like that. I was like, hold on, and I need you to, and wait a minute. And
hey, Terry, I understand. I'm an Earth sign too. I'm Capricorn. And
okay, so you know.
It feels good to check things off my
list. Exactly. I done took part of my day out to come and take care of me because I want to put my oxygen mask on first, and you just want to just herd me along? Nah, kid. I got this good insurance for a reason. So I'm gonna need you to, take care of me. So I say all that. This impactful piece, this SEL piece, is really impactful. And, I need, especially that you guys are in this space with both our schools and our students. I need you to really talk about the best practices now. So we talked about some barriers, right? We talked about, you did talk about some best practices, but what are some of the big ideas around this now? Because believe it or not, we only have a few more minutes to kind of get it in, right? Because again, this show goes by so quickly that, you look up and it's already, 50 on a marker and we're out of here. But I want to now dig a little bit more deeper into what Cynical Leadership Group is doing around the big ideas, because there's a lot of big ideas around education, right? And I alluded to a little bit of it when we talked about AI. And also, the impact that you're having in the classroom now versus, post-COVID, prior, because there was that pre-COVID and now there's that post-COVID. That post-COVID are those young people you were talking about, Tiffany, that hadn't been in the classroom, that don't have those same rules, that don't have that same understanding. And what do you mean I can't have a snack right now? And I don't want to go to sleep. And I don't want to, there's a whole bunch of I don't want to. Some things that in my generation you wouldn't even been able to say. You would have no tooth, but that's a whole nother different story because that's another generation. I always say our parents parented from their reality.
Right.
You know, now we call it child abuse, but they parents.
I guess that statute of limitations ran out, huh?
Exactly. Exactly. But I felt like, and we kid about it, but they did. Like, they had a different approach. Like, that whole kid should be seen and not heard was a thing. It
Yeah, that was
really,
real.
really was a thing. And I can't see telling my 4-year-old you don't have it, you can't say anything. You don't have an opinion. That doesn't hurt. It does. And no matter how I look at it from my big view, his little view is what he sees and what he feels. So I have to take into account how he's feeling. And especially, you know, he uses both hands and he can't figure out which one he wants to use. He uses them both strongly. And so you can imagine, like, and I say this about bilingual students, right? So you'll see a student that is like at school he's English and then at home he's maybe speaking Spanish. You'll see when he's in school and he's learning something, you see he pauses before he answers you. And some people will say, "Oh, well, he has to learn." No, he doesn't. He literally is in his mind
Translating.
You were translating what you're saying. And so my baby does that with his hand. So one day, like he'll pick up something and he's eating from the right hand, and then he'll go over and he'll start painting with his left hand, and then he'll come back and he has his book back, and they're like, "What is it?" I'm like, "He hasn't decided," but he doesn't have to decide.
He doesn't.
He can use both if he wants to, right?
Sure.
But what I need him to understand is he's still going to do the work, though. You can use both. I don't care about that. I don't care as long as you want.
With your left hand or your right hand. I don't care.
You're going to do the work. So let's talk about some of those best practices so we can get our listening audience to understand that this education space is a huge space, not just for our educators, not just for our students, but for generations to come. Like, this is so impactful. When we are able to touch on the ground these young people and give them that foundation, and I always say this, if your child gets a foundation early, oh my God, they will soar. They are so amazed. Like, children are sponges. They're amazing. Like, my kid learned Spanish from 3 years old. She was like learning, and they're like, "What do you mean?" The same thing if you are speaking 2 languages in a household. The kid can, if you're speaking 5 languages in a house, kid gonna pick up all 5. They're gonna speak all 5 languages. There is no limitations on what they can do. So now, how do we translate that into best practices, especially in the space that you guys are playing in? You're in Cynical Leadership Group. You're supporting our educators. You're encouraging and empowering our students. What are some of the best practices that we can take away from those that are listening to us today, that are in the educator space, that are looking to be more impactful, that are looking to do more than what they're paid for, and at the same time walk away feeling rewarded? Because this is a rewarding field. You know, I always say there's not a lot of money in teaching on a college level, but oh my God, the reward is amazing. When my students come back and say, "Professor, remember when you told me da 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 da?" Well, here's what happened. I am floored every single time. I get the fuzzies. I'm like, I did that.
Well, I will say, I think it was back when I was starting to build. I was going to all kind of events, workshops, and everything. And I met this guy. He does something with careers. I can't remember his name. He's down at UPenn. We had a quick meeting, and he pointed something out to me. He said, "You know, you are the only one in this space who has the background of education that you do. So you are actually doing something different." And I was like, yeah, that's what I started out doing. So some of the best practices are the support that we provide for our teachers. We go to the schools and we do observe. I treat it just like I did when I was in the school, because I feel like if you don't know how you're doing, then how are you going to know if you're good or not? So you need that feedback. So we go in, we observe, we coach them. If something happens in the middle of the day, you can call and reach out. Now I have a team now, but before the team, everybody, make sure you get you a team around you. But what I did was I just started pulling my educator friends that were looking to do something different too. And so they can call, they get those supports. I never want them to feel alone. Never.
That's right.
Because after being in education for so long, I saw a lot of good teachers leave the field because
they were depleted.
They were depleted.
And we're seeing even more of that now. And that's why I was so excited to have you both on today, because I do want my educators to understand that there is support out here. You know,
Yes.
because a lot of them, even when I did my last PD, a lot of them felt like they were alone. They have all of these IUDs, all this stuff that they have to adhere to, and they felt like they have no support to do it. And so knowing that they can call Cynical Leadership Group, even in the middle of the day when they're struggling through something, gives them that extra courage or that extra support that they need to be able to accomplish what they need to accomplish and do more than what they're paid to do, and feel confident in whatever they're doing because they know they're delivering on the best practice. And the thing that I love about education in general is that they're changing lives every single day. Every single little person or older person, any person that walked through that door is impacted. And I said this to my teachers the other day. I'm like, do you realize how much impact you have on this kid's life? My 4-year-old says to me, well, Mr. Armando said, do it this way. I'm like, really? This is what you walking around like we walking down the stairs. Well, Miss Walker said you gotta hold your hand down. You can't hold your hand up on this. I'm looking at him like, boy, if you don't come down these stairs.
But you know what, Terry? I'm putting you on the spot, Vincent. Talking about best practices. One best practices is always be, networking, communicating, collaborating with others. And that is Vincent's wheelhouse. So Vincent, please talk about that. Like I learned from him, and I think other entrepreneurs and just people professionally could learn from him, because sometimes I didn't think about it like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Network is important. And that's the name of my business. Coaxum Connects, connecting you because relationships matter.
They matter.
So talk to us, Vincent, about
when we talk about best practices in that manner, two things come to mind for us moving forward. One is going to be around advocacy, right? And then how do we integrate AI in the work that we're doing, right? And specifically machine learning AI, right? And really thinking like how, if we want to be impactful, right? What a lot of business owners also, I don't think we all recognize, is that we have a voice in the community, in politics, right? And that voice is different than the individual voter. It's different than the school board. Your voice matters too. We are stakeholders in the industry as well. And so how can Cynical have a voice in amplifying what is important for our community?
That's right.
For the community of color, which then includes our children as well. And so that networking, to Tiffany's point, leads you to thinking about how can you be more impactful with each relationship that you have, and you want to level up, right? And so to say, and moving into politics and advocacy is a way to get there relatively quick.
And make it intentional. Like make those relationships, make whatever that is, that impact, whatever that meeting is, whatever that training is, make it intentional. And so I'm not sure you guys know this, but by way of background, I was the SBA regional advocate for President Obama. Prior to that, I was Chuck Schumer's deputy state director, first African-American woman to hold that job. And prior to that, I ran community relations for the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. And so all of those relationships are what I use now to empower, encourage, and impact lives every single day of my life. And so the advocacy does matter. The relationships, being intentional about whatever that is. I always tell my students, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. It's not that decisions aren't being made. They're still being made. You're just on the menu and not at the table. So I encourage them to be at the table. So go to your community board meetings, go to your precinct community council meetings, be a part of whatever groups that if your elected official is sending out letters and saying that we're interested in providing funding for this program, be a part of the survey. Go to the meetings, go to the trainings, go to the open houses, whatever it is. If you're not there, decisions are still being made. Yes. You're just not there to be a part of the decision. And that's why the relationships do matter. Being a part of the advocacy, it really matters. And so even when I'm teaching policy, I'm telling my students, I teach them, they walk away knowing how to write policy because I want them to be in the game. Right. I don't want them to be sitting back trying to understand the game. I want them to be in the game. And the way to be in the game is to go from the ground up. And that's why I'm introducing them to the elected officials. Right. I'm bringing in the ambassadors. I'm bringing in the small business owners. I'm bringing in the multimillionaires. Yes. I'm making sure that they understand that their voice matters every single step. And that's why it's really important for me to have you guys on today. Cynical is leading the charge when it comes to education and support. I mean, you don't understand like how important it is. I know you do understand, and I'm kind of being facetious, but I'm really, really trying to bring it home. When I'm talking to my educators and they are drained, they are depleted, they're feeling alone. And then they see my show and they be like, Tiffany and Vincent, I need to tag them in.
Call us up.
They on these streets. What they doing? Let me tag them in. And so that's why it's really important for us to tell our own narrative, right? To be our own story, to be in front of the cameras and letting people know, look, there is a cynical leadership group out here to support and encourage you. There is a group that looks like us, that know our story and understand our story, and that come from our background, that is being impactful and making it intentional, that is advocating and then have a voice. And so that's why it's extremely important for me to have you on today. And so we only got a few more minutes, but I want you to leave our listening audience with one thing you can leave them with. What would it be?
Oh, wow. Look, all the questions, we were able to answer those.
You got this. You got this. There's one thing, if you can leave the educators, because understand they're listening to us, right? And it's not just here in the United States, right? And of course, no matter where we are in the world, this support is really needed. So if there's one thing that you could, and even if it's just as a small business owner, what can you do to encourage and inspire them to walk the course? Because all of us have our season and our reason, right? But what is it that we can leave with them to help encourage and empower them? Because I always love to end with solutions. I like the solutions part of this.
Well, the thing that comes to mind for me is like how I talk about the whole support and not getting that support, and that's why we provide the support to our educators. I think that just like there's niches in whether or not you want to do high school or middle school or elementary, it's the same with schools. Schools are different. So don't give up. It might just be that that's not the school for you. And you might need to find your own support in the meantime until you transition and find that school. And that's also one of the things that we help do too. We help people go and get, try out different schools and then be like, oh, we love this one.
Right.
And
so
it's
find their fit. You're helping them find their fit. So
yes.
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to look for your fit.
Yes. And don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and get your own support until you can, get to a place where the school's providing that for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, Tiffany, Vincent, this has been an amazing interview. It went faster than we thought it would. I mean, sometimes when I tell them an hour, my guests are like an hour. And then you look up and it's like, what do you mean? But I'm definitely going to have you guys back on if you have some time in the future as we're moving through, because I want you to come back and talk about some more of the solutions, because it's all about solutions at the end of the day. Anybody that's listening to us today, I encourage you to go back and listen to us on Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Roku. You can download an app on our TV network. And Tiffany and Vincent is really changing the game in education. They're supporting, they're encouraging, but more importantly, they care and they're being intentional about it. So I want to thank you for being a part of the Coaxum Report, and I look forward to more contact in the future, because I already know that your greater is yet to come. Thank you so much for being part of the Coaxum Report.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.